John, how did you become interested in football?
Well, I used to play football at school, and I played in the school team. I became interested in Enfield Football Club because my father used to follow them, and he used to take me over there when I was a boy, and that was it really. I followed them from sort of the early 1960s through to when the club finally folded, which was sometime in the 1990s, I believe, or they left Southby Road in around about 1999.
How about you, Roger?
Basically the same. Moved up here from Lincolnshire in 1959. My brother took me up to Spurs a couple of times, didn't really get interested. And my friend I used to go to school with, Eddie Mills, he asked me to come over here, over Southby Road, and watch them. Got really interested in it, and his father used to take us to the all-way games in the back of a lorry with all our paraphernalia on. So ever since that day, basically, Enfield Football Club.
John, what's your earliest memory of football?
What is my earliest memory of football? Probably when my dad took me to a game at the old stadium, which used to be the other end of the playing fields. It was probably around about 1955, I guess, so I was quite young. And we went to sit, I can't remember who they were playing, obviously, but we sat in the stand, and that was it. That was the first game that I watched. I wasn't over interested, to be honest, on that day, but I came to enjoy football more as time moved on.
How about you, Roger?
Probably sitting at Wembley in 1964, watching Roger Day score, and then Malcolm Mitchell broke his arm, and we ended up with 10 men for the rest of the game. And Crooktown went on to win 2-1. We should have won that day, but Malcolm Mitchell coming out in the second half with his plaster around his arm, and he played at centre forward. That's my probably earliest memory.
Roger again, what's your best football memory and why?
Best football memory?
Yeah.
Probably to do with the dog, when they played Port Vale. And on the back of the page, I think Ronnie Howell scored a goal, and Bruce the dog used to jump up the fence, and on the back page of the Sun the next morning was the splendour of the FA Cup, when we beat Port Vale 3-1, I think it was.
John, what's your best football memory and why?
My best football memory would probably be the FA Amateur Cup semi-final in 1964, when Enfield beat Kingstonian. I think the result was 3-2, and that put us into our first final of the FA Amateur Cup at Wembley.
And John again, what's your worst football memory and why?
My worst football memory was probably a game at Leytonstone, which was I think around about 1963. Enfield were still in the Athenian League at that time, and we thought we were pretty good, and we were doing quite well. We won the Athenian League, I think, certainly in the previous few seasons, but we got a surprise that day. Leytonstone beat us 4-0, and that was it was an amateur cup fixture, but that's one of my very worst memories.
How about you, Roger?
Probably Highgate United, 1967, when the player got struck down by lightning and died. Very, very sad. It was their cup final, not Highgate. Well, they was 1-0 down, but absolutely so sad. How you can go out to play your game of football. The reason why he died because they had metal medallions on their shirts. It was their cup final. And they played a replay at Villa Park. There was 36,000 people there to pay their respects. Very sad.
John, why did you choose to support Enfield?
Well, I actually went to Spurs quite a bit back in the early 60s. It's the season when they won the double, and I used to enjoy going there, but I didn't particularly like the crowds. My dad used to support Enfield, and he said, "Why don't you come and watch Enfield?" So I went to watch Enfield, and I liked what I saw, and the rest is history.
You, Roger?
Basically what I said earlier on. I mean, my mate at school, he said to me, "Why'd you come over and watch Enfield?" I wasn't interested in Spurs, I wasn't interested in football and that, but I really enjoyed my Saturday afternoons out watching Enfield. Done ever since, really. Still a big kid now.
Have you made good friends from being a football fan, John?
Certainly. I've made quite a few good friends from being a football fan. One sitting beside me. I've known Roger since 1971, so quite a long time, and we actually met through Enfield Football Club, and following a few years when we drifted apart, we've got back together and we both support Enfield Town now.
How about you, Roger?
Basically the same. Met John in 1971. That was when we went to Ibiza in a Enfield Football Club. They went there for a fortnight, stayed in a lovely hotel, and we met a load of big. I still keep in contact with quite a few of them, but it's not the same as John, because we come and watch Enfield Town wherever. Same sort of thing.
Roger, has any of your family came to watch any of your games to support you and the team?
My sisters used to come very regular, but now she's joined the bandwagon of Man United supporters, which she's got a season ticket for. So she used to come over regularly when we were kids, little young people. My eldest sister used to work with a lot of the Enfield players, and she knew them very personally in the old days.
Did any of yours, John?
My family
Yeah.
come to Enfield with me. Well, obviously my dad in the early days. My brother used to come along to follow them at one time. But I suppose the main member of my family who's joined me for Enfield games is my nephew. He used to come to most of the games with me. I think one season we actually saw every game, home and away.
Roger, can you imagine your life without football?
Yeah, I spend more time in the pub.
What about you, John?
Can I imagine my life without football? I really like football, and it is, I think, quite an important part of my life. But obviously, it's not the main part of life, and there are other more important things, of course. But recreationally, football is my major sport. I like it above any other sport, and I certainly feel that if football wasn't there, it would leave a gap, no question.
John, does football still interest you until these days?
Does football still interest me to
Yeah.
this day? Oh, certainly, yeah. I watch sort of most levels of football. I still sometimes go to Spurs. I'm in the members club there, and I try and see 3 or 4 games a season. It's quite expensive, of course, so I tend to see most of my games at Enfield Town. But yeah, very, very interested still. Very interested.
How about you, Roger?
Yeah, still love watching Enfield Town. Like even when I was your age, just jumping on, having a bit. But me, I'm the world's worst banter person over Enfield Town. Now I have a go at the goalkeeper and try to put him off his mark. But I just love it. All the crowd love it as well. Love it.
How would you describe the supporters of Enfield Town Football Club, John?
How would I describe the supporters of Enfield Town Football Club? supporters of Enfield Town Football Club. I mean, they're a great bunch. They're very loyal, and the club is actually owned by the supporters. If it wasn't for the supporters, the club wouldn't be here. And there are several people here today who do an awful lot for this club. You can see the ground we've got here now, and that's really down to the dedication of they're a fairly small group, but they do a lot of good work. Yeah, they're great, fantastic.
What about you, Roger?
Yeah, basically the same as what John said. I mean, we need people like you youngsters coming over here and getting involved with Enfield Town Football Club. You're the next generation of supporters. You know, we've had our time, but hopefully we're here for another few years. Well, no, I don't mean that, but what I mean, we need people like you to come over. You know, you can have a really good afternoon out over here.
What's your earliest memory of Enfield Football Club?
My earliest memory of Enfield Football Club was probably back in about 1955 when I went to a game with my father. I think he probably got stuck with me for the day. My mum was doing something else, and he got stuck with taking me to football. So he took me in the stand, and it was an Athenian League game in those days. At that time, Enfield weren't doing particularly well. They were sort of languishing in the lower reaches of the league, I believe. So it wasn't a great game, and I wasn't interested. But that was about the first game that I can remember.
Roger, what do you remember about your first game?
My first game I'll probably remember is when they played Hollis in that 1959. I think they won 15-1, and Tommy Lawrence scored 5 goals that day, which was a record. Although I've been told that I'm wrong, but I still think I'm right. He scored 5 goals, and the one to beat it was when George Best scored 6 against Northampton. So he did hold a record at the time.
What memories do you have of the old ground at Southbury Road?
Very fond memories, some lovely nights, especially the big nights when like played the FA Cup replays, like Reading, 8,000-9,000 people over there. You know, got in the ground at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon because you had to be there. Watford, and later on there was Port Vale on the night. All these night games, the atmosphere was unbelievable. Being so young, but it was absolutely tremendous.
John, what memories have you got of Southbury Road?
Southbury Road, wonderful memories. I particularly remember the first floodlight game over there, which was organised against Spurs. It was on the 10th of October 1962, actually. Somewhere or other I've still got the programme, but Spurs took the lead. I think they went 2-0 up. Enfield came back and finally won the game. Other than that, yeah, some wonderful memories right from the early 60s through to the late 90s, when unfortunately the stadium was taken from us. But
how did you feel about losing Southbury Road?
Oh, devastated, absolutely devastated. I really didn't have too much hope for the future, and I just couldn't really enjoy the prospect of travelling around to different grounds to watch my local team. It didn't seem right, so I actually drifted away for a few years, but when Enfield Town were formed and started playing in the borough again, I got back and I'm there again now. I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
And how do you feel about Enfield Town?
How do I feel about Enfield Town? I think Enfield Town are a great club. Supporters run a club, of course. Hopefully, over a few seasons we'll be able to progress. I mean, not too bad from the time they were formed in 2001, I believe. Their Essex Senior League, I believe, was the first league they played in, and they've now got to the Ryman Premier, which is a pretty good standard of football. So hopefully, bit by bit, we'll improve and move up the ladder.
Roger, has Enfield Town refired your enthusiasm for football?
Definitely, definitely. I mean, I was a member at Brimstown when they used to be over there. When John started coming over, we used to go there for 5 minutes. If it was in the middle of winter, it was too cold, we went back indoor. We couldn't be bothered. But then gradually, people kept on, saying, and I've had a great time ever since. Absolutely, I can't knock it. I mean, I've met some great people, especially Lowestoft supporters. I mean, I've got a great affinity with them. In fact, we went there last weekend to see them in the playoffs, and they got lost again. But it means another great day out for us next season. So we got Lowestoft again. So I'm happy. All means to me an afternoon of just going out and meeting going to different people, especially this Ryman Premier. Going to different places this season, like this last season, going down the coast, jumping on a train, just meeting up with people and having a good laugh. I've had some great memories from last season.
Okay. John, what does football mean to you?
What does football mean to me? It's my main hobby. Takes up quite a bit of my life altogether. If I'm not watching Enfield Town, and I'm watching football most of the time on television. It's my favourite sport, and if football wasn't there, it'd leave a gap in my life, undoubtedly.